Allan Aguirre, Incorruptible, 2-minute warning. It's Friday. Sleepover last night with the 9-year-old granddaughter. I love the fact that she likes to hang out, and so we hang out. Up a little late. This old man was up a little too late. And then you've got the son coming over 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, wanting to grab one of our trailers so they can go get hay for the horses. It's Friday. Is it day one? Last night was Rosh Chodesh, wasn't it? Yes. Last night was Rosh Chodesh. Bunch of pictures. So today is day one of the month of Ziv, the third month. Let me write this in my... See, you put that information on your calendar right there. See, 01 and then 02 right there. Boom. Oh, you know what? That's the wrong date. I'm on the wrong date. I'm on the wrong week. I was already in advance looking at stuff. Okay, today's the 10th. Thursday night. Last night was Rosh Chodesh. So today, the 10th is 01. Tomorrow's 02. There we go. Now that I've got that right, the 10th is 01. And you just fill it out. You fill out your month, your 2-page month. See, I put an 01 and an 02 next to the date. So that's how we know. And then I did it on the week view as well. See? Week view. This is our 4th year with calendars or something like that. It's crazy how time flies. This is the new one. The one you presently have from last year is ended because we do the, 15 months, 16 months? We don't do the 12 month. We actually start in January and then loop past January to the end of Passover, which is the beginning of that new year. And then when you start in January again, we have like 3 months that overlap every year. So if you don't have the new calendar, the 2024 to 2025 calendar, then you're out of calendar. You need to get another one. Acacia Grove Press. Cheers. Okay. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. We're starting in verse 12. Concern for the Corinthian church. So verse 12 says, "The signs of a true apostle were performed among you with utmost patience, with signs and wonders and mighty works." The Complete Jewish Bible says, "The things that prove I am an emissary," that's the other word for apostle, "here are the things that prove I'm an apostle. Signs, wonders, and miracles, and they were done in your presence, despite what I had to endure." I've been around apostles and prophets my entire Christian walk. I got saved. It was a Jesus Movement church that started in the early 70s. So by the time I got involved, it had been around for 8, 9, 10 years easily, probably 8 to 10 years. I remember visiting this church up in Northern California when my uncle got married. I don't remember was that 70. I don't know what year it was. Well, I remember visiting this group in 1971 in Oregon. And then I remember visiting, I went and spent a month in Corvallis with my uncle that I would live with in Guatemala, who would become an apostle. So I was around this Jesus Movement group as early as 1971. And I remember it vividly. I remember the sound of an acoustic guitar during worship and how it when I hear that chord on a 6-string acoustic a few times since my, 53 years ago, I get the Holy Spirit just washes over me. And so I was exposed to this group, this church group, Gospel Outreach from Northern California, not far from where Lenny lives right now. when I was 7 years old. And then I remember maybe a couple years later, 73 or 74, when my other uncle, this other guy's younger brother, got married. He was living at the Lighthouse Ranch, which is the one near Lenny's place. And going there and meeting all these guys. And then I remember going back there when my uncle that lived in Corvallis, that I lived with in Guatemala, when he became an elder, when he was ordained an elder, and that was probably around 75, 76, something like that. Well, the years are a little shaky. I was young, and then they went to Guatemala in 77 after the earthquake, and then I showed up 3 years later after that. So I've been around, and so the guy that started that gospel outreach, so he was it a Baptist? I'm not quite sure what denomination he was. And he started speaking in tongues, I think. I think it's his testimony, Jim Durkin. He was shaving and started speaking in tongues. I think that's his testimony. And so he had to deal with, he got kicked out of his denomination because you can't speak in tongues and be a part of most denominations. Ah, shucks. Gee, there's your line. There's your dividing line. Whose side do you want to be on? If you want to be on the correct side historically, on the right side of history, you don't want to be with the denomination side that kicks people out for speaking in tongues. You want to be on the charismatic side. Oh my gosh, because you know what, charismatica, speaking in tongues, is one of the things that is going, the spirit of prophecy, the testimony of Jesus, all that stuff. Those are the things that are discussed in Revelation, not denominations. And especially, think of any denomination that exists from Catholicism on. We're talking 3rd, 4th century on. None of them are in the Bible by name. They're in the Bible by characteristics. They're in the Bible with the attributes that define them, but they're all negative. They're not good. None of them are good. Who does endure, who the dragon does go after in Revelation, are those that keep to the testimony of Jesus, which is spirit of prophecy, which is charismatica. Can't have the spirit of prophecy without being spirit-filled with the signs and wonders. And those that keep the Torah. That's what it says twice in Revelation. So, gospel outreach in the 70s. Yes, they did. Wow, check this out. Yes, Jeff, they did a lot of tree planting. In fact, my younger, the two uncles I'm talking about, they're brothers. The younger of the two, the one that I went to his wedding, was part of the tree planting team. So yes, gospel outreach, Northern California, Jim Durkin, up there, Lighthouse Ranch. There was another, Living Waters Ranch. Yeah, they had Radiance Ministries. They had a Radiance Tape Ministries and all that. Yeah, that's the group. Yeah, my uncle is 70 this year, so the younger one. So yes. So they went to Guatemala. I showed up in Guatemala. So I've been around. So the guy, Jim Durkin, that started Gospel Outreach, was an apostle. So he got saved. He found a group of hippies. God told him to go and start mentoring them and start discipling them, and he did. And that's where Gospel Outreach started. So all that to say, I've been around apostles and prophets my entire Christian walk. And then after what happened in Guatemala in 1982 through my uncle's church, they then made him an apostle because it's an apostolic work. So I bring all this up because the signs, an apostle is basically, so based on the New Testament teaching, foundationally, Ephesians chapter 4, the fivefold ministry, apostles are the leaders of the church, and they oversee the entire work. Underneath an apostle would be a prophet, and underneath prophets, depending on what version you read, it's usually evangelists, teachers, pastors, or teachers, evangelists, pastors. Never is the pastor above the bottom rung. He is just the low man on the totem pole. I'm not saying that in a negative, disparaging way. I'm saying that they're professional. They tend the sheep. If I do say it in a disparaging way, it's because we've made pastors the head of the totem pole. And that's why Christianity doesn't work. Because they don't have the skill sets, they don't have the abilities, they don't have, they're outside their pay grade. So, the church is an elder-based church based on the New Testament teaching. And out of those elders are where you're going to get your fivefold: apostles, prophets, evangelists, teachers, and pastors. And because of Catholicism, where they eliminated apostles and pastors, you can still be an evangelist, you can still be a teacher, you can still be a pastor. And since Protestantism is Reformed Catholicism, we carried the same erroneous concepts and doctrines and theologies. And here we are with evangelical Christianity, where the amount of doctrines of demons involved when it comes to apostles and prophets is quite scary. There's only 12 original apostles, and then they made a mistake, and Paul is one of them now. That's one of the doctrines that doesn't fly, because the New Testament calls other people out of those 12, literally in the Bible, in the New Testament, other guys are called apostles. Barnabas was called an apostle. He's not one of the original 12, right? So on and so forth. And so it's a lot easier to say there's no apostles and prophets when you're not an apostle and a prophet, right? If pastors are the only ones that are being elevated, it's a lot easier to say that God eliminated those two top tiers because, right? I mean, let me explain. The Pharisees did the same thing. The Pharisees could not do what the prophets of old could do. They couldn't heal. They couldn't cast out demons. They couldn't tell the future. They couldn't do any signs and wonders. They couldn't do any miracles, the Pharisees. And they're the leaders of the church, right? And so how do you then, you have to come up with a reason why that stuff's not happening. Otherwise, you incriminate yourself, right? Well, you incriminate yourself when you come up with lies to explain things away. But they're the ruling authority. They're the leaders. They have to come up with reasons why they can't do the things the real leaders in the Bible did or could do to be able to justify your position, etc., etc. Well, the same thing happened with pastors, evangelists, and teachers. No more apostles and prophets because, well, we can't do any of the things apostles and prophets can do, just like the Pharisees. And so Jesus could. Jesus could do what the prophets of old did. And that's why they demonized him and said he was demonic in doing so. And so, since pastors today, they're basically the ruling class in the church, they can't do any of the things apostles and prophets can do. They have to demonize. They have to talk smack about those roles and those abilities to justify their position, to justify their job, to justify their vocation, because that's what it is. That's what it's become. It's not a spiritual gift and it's not a spiritual office like the New Testament teaches that it is. So Paul is saying, here are the signs of first of all, Jesus said, here are the signs that prove you're a disciple. You will speak in tongues, heal the sick, cast out demons, raise the dead. The majority of Christians can't do any of that. What does that say about Christianity? I don't think they're real Christians. I'm going to go with what Jesus said in the red letters. I'm not going to go with feelings. I'm not going to go with common, popular theology. I just can't. Jesus said, my disciples will know my voice. The majority of Christians have never heard his voice. They don't know what God sounds like. They know my sheep know my voice, and these are the signs to show that they're really my disciples. They will do these things. Well, if you can't do those things, you're probably not a real disciple. I didn't write it. I didn't make it up. I'm just reminding you what the Bible says versus what Christianity's been shoving down your throat all your life. See? That's all I'm doing. Don't kill the messenger. Jesus, well, they did. They killed the messenger. His name was Jesus. Jesus said that, not Allan Aguirre. Jesus did. I'm just telling you, I'm just reminding you what Jesus said. I'm just reminding you of what Jesus said you're supposed to look like. If you don't look like that, fix it, correct it. And that's why we exist. We're here to equip you into becoming a real disciple of Jesus with the ability to do the things Jesus said you would do if you were a real believer. And if you've come to our conferences, if you've been around for any amount of time, you'll see that not only is that what we desire to do, but we actually can do that. We can help you learn how to figure out how to speak in tongues, heal the sick, cast out demons. Haven't raised the dead yet, but that doesn't mean that's not a real thing that can happen. It can. We also tell you that if you do raise the dead, don't tell anybody, because then, well, they're going to come after you. What was the last thing Jesus did that tipped the scale? What was the last thing Jesus did on earth that caused them to decide, once and for all? They had been talking about it for a while. They had been talking about killing him. But what was the last thing Jesus did that tipped the scale, that made them go, that's it. We have no choice in the matter. Now we have to kill him. All right, I'll tell you. He raised Lazarus from the dead. Raising the dead will get you killed. Can't do that. Well, you can. You should. You're supposed to. But it'll get you in trouble with the authorities. I promise you. So, and we also equip you in how to be able to do these things, how to prophesy, how to interpret dreams, how to do the kingdom work. That's what we do. That's what we're here to do. That's what we do. We're here to teach you how to keep God's covenants of Torah, of obedience, of the commandments, and we're here to teach you how to be charismatic. Those are the two things that define the church in the last days, and here we are. Wow. Okay. In the same way, Paul is saying that to prove that he was a real apostle, he did signs, wonders, and miracles. And, yeah. So the next time you run into somebody that says they're an apostle, check his scorecard. Check and see. Make sure they have signs, wonders, and miracles in their resume. Otherwise, stay away from them. Back away, because anyone that's going to run around calling themselves an apostle in the first place that's a little scary. The second thing is, if they're going to call themselves an apostle and not be able to do the things that a real apostle does, you might want to, because and then those that don't even believe in stuff will tell you what the definition of an apostle is. Oh, they plant churches. Planting a church is barely on the list here. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they do, but there's other things that they do. Apostles function in the spiritual realm. They have abilities in the spiritual realm that they bring into the earth realm, into your earth realm, just like Jesus. Jesus did these things and then taught his disciples how to do those same exact things, encouraged them that they would do greater things than him, and then told them to duplicate that. Go and duplicate what I just put into you, go and duplicate it into others. Here we are. All right. Verse 13, for in what were you less favored than the rest of the churches, except that I myself did not burden you? Forgive me this wrong. Context, go back and catch up. Verse 14, here for the third time I am ready to come to you, and I will not be a burden, and I seek not what is yours, but you. For children are not obligated to save up for their parents, but parents for their children. I will most gladly spend and be spent for your souls. If apostles are teaching against God's laws, well, then they're not real. Then, according to Deuteronomy 13 and 18. Here's the thing: I don't know of anyone that's considered a prophet out there that teaches against keeping Torah. I don't know many teachers that do that. They might not do it, but they're not teaching you not to do it. Lance doesn't do that. Chuck Pierce doesn't do that. I can sit here and give you the list. They don't teach that. But yes, if there's anyone that teaches against doing Torah, Jesus said that's no good, and Deuteronomy says it's no good. Here's a comment. So here's that one. We already answered that. And then there's this one. It seems like apostles in Central America do a lot of healing. That's true. But self-identified apostles in the USA seem to be most interested who is president and not who is king. So if you're saying that to talk smack about Trump, I'm not going to entertain it because that's just ignorant. Don't do that. Two, I don't endorse self-proclaimed or self-identified apostles. I don't endorse those. The people I endorse, and I mentioned two, are not self-identified, and they did support President Trump. And so you can't say that. See, that's you can't say that. You can't say that anybody that is interested in who is president and supporting that is not interested in supporting the king. See, why do that? Why make comments like that? I mean, if they're self-identified apostles, they're already wrong, regardless of what they're doing. But then to do that, see, am I wrong, Jeff? Or are you suggesting that anybody that supported Trump as a leader in the church wasn't interested in who was king? Because that's an absolute false narrative. Trump was prophesied 10 to 12 years before it happened by legitimate prophets. I mean, these guys prophesied Trump 10 to 12 years before it happened. That doesn't make them or Trump illegitimate. It makes what the church did illegitimate. And look at the shit show we're in now because of what the church did and didn't do in those 4 years. Well, let me tell you about radical enthusiasm in support of a leader. The sons of Issachar, their job was to read the stars, read the heavens, and prophetically know where Israel was supposed to go. They enthusiastically supported Deborah, the prophetess, before anyone else did. They also enthusiastically sided with David when he was an enemy of the state, because they knew they were supposed to go with David, because they knew prophetically that David would become king over Saul. So I don't agree that radical enthusiasm is a bad thing. In fact, if you're not radically enthusiastic about Jesus and the things of the Lord, which also translates into being radically enthusiastic about things in this earth realm, you're probably missing out on a whole bunch more than you even know. So be very careful. I'm not the guy to play that game with. Maybe someone else. Oh, I'm not saying you're trying to come against me. I'm not worried. You can come against me all day long. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about you. I'm worried about how you're thinking in your process. It's flawed. Radical enthusiasm isn't bad. Supporting the prophets in the earth realm isn't bad. And the majority of the time, way too much time, in the biblical narrative, in the scriptural narrative, prophets supported a world leader, a king. So why is that bad now? They did it back then. It's in the scriptures. There's more prophetic enthusiasm regarding the support of a leader, a national leader, than there isn't. And in the same way, there's prophetic radical enthusiasm regarding leaders. There's nothing wrong with radical enthusiasm when it comes to leaders of nations. So, anyway, where were we? Verse 15. I will most gladly spend, this is why people tell you don't read the comments, and I do. I will most gladly spend and be spent for your souls. If I love you more, am I to be loved less? But granting that I myself did not burden you, I was crafty, you say, and got the better of you by deceit. Isn't that amazing? Did I take advantage of you through any of those whom I sent to you? I urged Titus to go and sent the brother with him. Did Titus take advantage of you? Did we not act in the same spirit? Did we not take the same steps? Have you been thinking all along that we have been defending ourselves to you? It is in the sight of God that we have been speaking in Christ, and all for your upbuilding, beloved. For I fear that perhaps when I come I might find you not as I wish, and that you may find me not as you wish. That perhaps there may be quarreling, jealousy, anger, hostility, slander, gossip, conceit, and disorder. I fear that when I come, right? Let me read that again. So simply by the interaction, there's obviously there's more interaction between Paul and the church in Corinth than we know about, because he's talking about, there's at the very beginning of 1 Corinthians, we talked that there was possibly a third letter, but apparently, plus dialogue notes, conversations with other guys that he's sending them. So Paul's got this idea, that Paul sees something going on with Corinth that still isn't good. This is at the end of the second letter that we have access to, and there's still issues. For I fear that perhaps when I come, and I don't believe he ever did make it back there, I may find you not as I wish, and that you may find me not as you wish. That perhaps there may be quarreling, jealousy, anger, hostility, slander, gossip, conceit, and disorder. These are not the things you want to hear your leader say about you. These are not the things you want your leader, your apostolic oversight, your apostolic covering. These are not the attributes you want your apostolic covering to use regarding you. Quarrel, jealous, anger, hostility, slander, gossip, conceit, and disorder. So things are not pleasant in Corinth. I fear that when I come again, my God may humble me before you, and I may have to mourn over many of those who have sinned earlier. Right? Remember, the guy was sleeping with his dad's wife, and have not repented of the impurity, sexual immorality, and sensuality that they have practiced. It's not good. This church is it's not good. There's some problems there. Jeff, I hope we're good. If not, reach out to me privately and we can hash this out. I'm good to go. It's Friday. Today's day 1 of the new month, of the month of Ziv. Thank you to all of you that have sent in your first fruits offerings and your gifts. Thank you for those that are putting them together and to send. And have a great Shabbat. Have a great Shabbat. We will see you on Monday. We're going to be, I think, chapter 13 is the last chapter. We're going to wrap up Corinthians. I'm not quite sure. Okay, good. Thanks. And then I'm not sure. I'm thinking Thessalonians. Yeah. All right. We will, Shabbat Shalom.
The views and opinions expressed during our broadcasts are solely those of the broadcast producers, hosts, and/or guests, etc., and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the Travelog Network, its sponsors, or affiliates.